Yeah. So
Mine is
everybody,
mine. Okay, we are live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kanchana Banerjee wishing you hello, hi from Gurgaon. We are here, all of us today, for yet another wonderful book event, lit event, hosted by Koral Dasgupta of Tell Me Your Stories. As you can see on the screen, I have my favorite very, very accomplished authors from different cities, from different countries. Damyanti Biswas is from Singapore, Manjiri Prabhu from Pune, Vish Dhamija all the way from England. A very warm welcome to all of you. And today is indeed the most perfect day for the session today for the winter retreat. The setting of winter and how it contributes to the spine chilling and thrilling atmosphere of thriller stories, and crime novels. It is an extremely cold, damp, and a foggy day in Gurgaon today. So I think, I mean, it just kind of adds to the mood of the session, to the setting of the session today. So as a reader and as a writer, I've always enjoyed paying attention to the setting of crime novels, of thrillers that I have written or that I like to read. And some of my favorite authors, some of my favorite books, have been set in winter. And like who cannot kind of remember Stephen King's The Shining, in which a man with his family, he is stuck as a caretaker, as a winter caretaker of a haunted hotel, and the dark and gloomy atmosphere of the winter, the cold hush of the setting, it adds to the horrifying story. Then Murder in the Orient Express, a very, very favorite and oft-read book by readers all over the world. A train stuck in a winter storm, and then Dracula, one of the very popular kind of books in thriller horror genre. Would Dracula be just as chilling, just as horrifying if it was set in the tropics or in the summer? So these are some questions that we will be talking about. And off late, I have been introduced to yet another very accomplished author from Iceland, Ragnar Jonasson. His Icelandic Noah is so beautifully crafted around the topography of Iceland and the cold, stark winters that it almost becomes a character in his story. So these are some of the things that we are going to be discussing in the session today. And I like to start with Manjiri. Manjiri, as a reader and as a writer, as a short filmmaker, how important is it for you to use season or the weather in the stories that you craft, in the short films that you make?
Yeah. So thank you, Kanchana. It's absolutely important for me. In fact, I'm very, very partial to the elements, natural elements, and they play a very important role, in my stories. In fact, so much to the point that almost 3, 4 of my novels have rains and mist as a very important ingredient. And also, one of my books is named Silver in the
Mm.
Mist. So it's complete. It's very, very important. And I feel if you remove that element, like you said in the Icelandic, the landscape, if you remove that element from it, the novel loses its soul, I feel. So for me, at least, it's extremely important to have nature and all kinds of seasons, and they're almost like characters, like you said, along with the backdrop.
Great. So we'll come back to you, Manjiri, again and talk in
Yes.
details about two of your books in which you
Yes.
have used the winter setting, as a primary character in this thing. I would now like to ask Damyanti, your debut book, which I so enjoyed reading. I loved reading, and so did hundreds and thousands of readers across the globe have you beneath your skin. It is set, or it starts with a winter evening in Delhi. Is there any specific reason why you set the book in, Delhi winter, or you use the winter in your book,
uh,
the winter setting?
Thank you, Kanchana, for your kind words. The book definitely came from winter because I think I began seriously drafting it in December, right after the Nirbhaya tragedy happened. And I had a draft before that, but I did not have all the settings. I just had a few characters. And when I started off with drafting it, the second draft, I remember that the entire helpless rage that I felt at the Nirbhaya tragedy, that kind of, was swirling around in my head. So that's where Anjali was placed. So it was
Hmm.
very direct. And for me, Delhi winters have always had this bleak, menacing quality because nobody is on the streets. It gets quite cold. And
Hmm.
safety for women is a huge issue. So for me as a woman, when I negotiated Delhi, when I lived there for a few
Hmm.
years, it was kind of at the back of my mind, and it came to the forefront when I started writing You Beneath Your Skin.
Okay. Vish, over to you now. While many of your books are set in Bombay, and Bombay, as all of us know, hardly has any winter, what do you think about, as a reader, as a writer of so many best-selling crime novels? What is your take on the winter setting and crime novels?
So I guess there are ways to look at it, and I fully understand where Manjari and Damyanti are coming from. But in my mind, okay, so what winter does is that it might increase the opportunity for crime because the means, the motive, and opportunity, the crime, the trio, the means, the motives of people don't change because it's summers or winters.
Hmm.
Bombay obviously doesn't have, as you pointed out, extreme conditions of winters and summers. I have novels based in Delhi as well. I personally think it is the author's choice of something which may have happened to them, like burglary at my place happened in winters. How in the forefront or in the background we want the season of
Hmm.
crime or the novel is set in. Also, in my case, a lot of my books, for example, Vendi Bazaar, spans over 25 years. So it's the material, whether it starts in winter or summers, because it will run through the entire 25 years. A lot of my books are long winded, long carrying on stories. So it, it's to me, it's not as yet. I mean, and if the plot demands it, why not?
Hmm.
I use the backdrop of the cities, of the smell of everything environment more
Hmm.
than the season. And if the season is required, if I have to show rain, because that
Hmm.
washes of the footprints, which is the case in one of the books, then I use it. I don't bring it to the forefront as because in India there are not extreme conditions. So winter just increases the length of darkness or the length of loneliness because people
Hmm.
are there out in the open. So I guess to me, I believe it's an author's choice of picking up a season
Hmm.
and playing it, and it does increase the chances of the opportunity because of like I explained, and that can similarly happen on a very hot afternoon in Jaipur, where I was, where the temperature used to go to 50 degrees, and the roads were like as empty as they would be in Delhi in winter night.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and I think let's because you are moderating, but you would have some thoughts on that as well. If we would love to be, but love to know what you think.
No, so the thing is, you're absolutely right. It kind of depends on the writer, on the author, as to how to kind of create the lasting effect of the season, or make the season or the weather of a certain place a very important part of the setting. And like a winter setting, on one hand can be a very lonely, scary, terrifying, and a spine chilling experience. On the other hand, like a room in the kind of winter evening with a warm fireplace and the smell and the aroma of cakes and etc. and family sitting together can become a symbol, or become a very warm memory for the family. So, and when I was thinking about the questions and etc., and I just realized that this is not something which I had intended to do, but I just realized that in my first book, like A Forgotten Affair, I have used the winter night and the foggy, misty, cloudy, damp Delhi, Gurgaon winters to kind of portray the clouded mind of Sagarika, who's the protagonist. So I guess I kind of agree with you, Vish, on this, that it kind of depends on the story, depends on the character, and what the story really demands. Uh, so
Because on the flip side, it's also the happiest time of the year, as they say, because you've got Diwali and you've got Christmas. So the two are the happiest times. So it actually depends how you want to play it. You could, because the whole family is gathered at Diwalis and at Christmas, you could use it as a site for murder, or you could use it in a love story as a romance movie. So
exactly.
it's primarily your choice.
So, Manjiri, tell us more about tell our audience more about your two of your books in which you've used winter and the natural setting, etc., like the Trail of Four and Mystery of the Snow Queen, which is yet to be released.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about these two books, because I know one of them is based in Austria?
Yeah. So these are basically destination thrillers, which means the location plays a very very important role. It's not just a backdrop; it's like a character, and it gives the clues and stuff like that. But coming back to winter, I just want to go back to a memory of mine. I'll tell you why winter plays such an important role in Mystery of the Snow Queen. I don't know, most of you must have seen Dr. Zhivago, the
Yeah.
1965 film. Yeah, so
Yes.
I think that film, when I saw it, and it's winter. It's about this Dr. Zhivago who falls in love with Lara, and it's against on
Yeah.
the backdrop of the Russian Revolution. And Lara's theme is a very important musical, theme in the whole book. And this whole winter landscape, and I saw that as a child, I think, and that film really created an impact on my mind. And I realized that winter and the snowy backdrop is, as pristine and as untouched as it seems. It's got such a how should I say, a deep depth and, like you said, menacing and starkness to it. And a thriller against it would be just super. And which is why for my Mystery of the Snow Queen, I wanted a snowy backdrop, against, of course, a snowy backdrop, but, a Christmassy, cozy backdrop, but a very chilling story in contrast to that. And it's based in Germany. Trailer 4, like
Okay.
you said, is based in Austria, but this is based in Germany in the Bavarian landscapes. So you have
Wow.
lots of these, yeah, it's the landscape is amazing. And my most important memory of it is researching for it, which, I went
Ah.
wrapped up in woolens and trudging through the snow, which was knee deep, and oh, it was amazing. So I think so. This whole contrast, which I wanted to bring about in the Mystery of the Snow Queen, is very important for me, because winter does play a very significant role in my novels. So these are the two books. I don't want to take up more time talking about them because I can go on talking forever about my books. But yeah, they're important. And so, like Vish said, that yes, you can base a novel, a thriller novel, in hot summer. But I think what adds that element of why the snow and why winter is that element of romance that comes into it. I can't imagine a romantic novel based in hot, sultry, sweaty summer. So yes, the plot is important, honestly, unless you have some hot, steamy scenes,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, but other than that, I think the winter and the cuddliness, like you said, the coziness with family, the fireplace, and being wrapped up and sitting with a hot cup and beautiful snow outside, and it all lends itself to romanticism. And I think if you want to add that element of romanticism to your thrillers, winters and monsoons make a good addition to it.
True.
Actually, when I
So,
first heard about the 50 Shades of Grey, I thought somebody was doing the England's weather forecast. It's just great.
Oh.
okay, so Damyanti, you just mentioned that the Delhi winter, the starkness of the Delhi winter, and the lonely roads, etc. What you experienced when you were living here as a student and working in the early years of your career. So so I know that like that influenced your first book, You Beneath Your Skin, but carrying on. After that, you've written many short stories, some of which I have read, that you've posted on social media, and I know that you've finished working on your second and your third book. So like, tell us a little bit about if you have used the weather or the season in your books after You Beneath Your Skin?
Well, the one that is now with my agent, it's called The Blue Bar, and it is set in Mumbai. And I am kind of terrified because, authors here, you included, have written, Vish, all of you, I think, have written such, atmospheric novels about Mumbai. And Mumbai does have such a lot of atmosphere. And in terms of how, hot and humid and the sea air and the salty smell and the smell of all humanity, and so all of that, Mumbai actually is, if you set a novel in Mumbai, you cannot ignore Mumbai as a character, because Mumbai cannot really always remain a backdrop. If you see movies set in Mumbai also, they do show these these pan scenes, which of course Manjiri can talk about as a filmmaker, that you have to show the setting of Mumbai, because it is just so riveting and you cannot ignore it. You can love it, you can hate it, but you cannot remain indifferent to it. So yeah, that's also a crime novel, Blue Bar, and I've set it in Mumbai, and there is no winter over there, but the menace is still there. Like Vish pointed out, that motive is not going to change. Human beings will, wherever there are human beings, wherever there's greed, lust, you will have crime. So it's not necessary that we have winter, but yes, as
Of course.
again Manjari pointed out, that winter does add to that sense of romanticism sometimes, in some cases, like books by say Jennifer McMahon, who's written The Winter People. So it's kind of a supernatural thriller. So winter kind of tends to that, all ghostly scenes that we think about. It's all set in the night, so not too many that we see at noon, midday, and it's hot. It's usually cold, it's dark, and somebody's doing something incredibly stupid, and we'll tell them, why are you going there?
Yeah.
So yeah, winter adds that. I mean, if you want to, you can use it to that effect. So that's
Of
possible.
course, yeah. So I would tend to say that, like, a season, be it winter, be it summer, it really depends on how the author or how the writer wants to project the particular season. Like, of late I have been reading for the last couple of months. What? Wish, you want to say something?
No, your voice was breaking. So I was trying to.
My voice, okay, okay. Can you hear me clearly now?
Now,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that in the last couple of months, I've been reading Jane Harper, who's an Australian writer, and her books have become international best-selling books, etc. Very beautifully written. And in her first book, The Dry, she portrays the Australian outback and the extreme heat of the
Yeah.
summer and the drought situation so beautifully. And and it's a crime novel, it's a crime thriller, and the way she portrays death and starvation and the heat of the summer, it's amazing. So I think it really depends on the writer as to how they want to use the season. So Vish, I want to ask you, you live in England, which is the land of cold, damp, wet, gray sky, and awful weather. So,
we have
Vish
huh?
some.
is not happy with that.
We
Yeah,
have
I
some.
know you have summer, but then summer पे भी तो बारिश होती है ना वहाँ इंग्लैंड में. It's like usually
That's when you make pakoras, isn't it?
good.
Trying to kind
So
of. Yeah. Good.
so
Yeah.
as a writer, do you kind of have any preference, that you feel you are more productive in a particular season? You write more, you write better, or any other season, like, when it rains, do you feel clogged up in your head? Just as a thought, because
I
I do feel that way
nice,
sometimes.
like the author's block, the writer's block. These are nice terms that lazy authors have invented. I
Yeah.
personally believe that. I think
Okay.
the only thing is, if you stop all other distractions, maybe it's raining, you can't go out and play golf, you can't go out for a drive, you can't do anything, and you're locked
Hmm.
inside the house, then you're left with two, three options. One is keep eating, put on weight. The other is watch Netflix, Amazon Prime, so third is read or write, because you're hardly left with many choices.
Huh.
So yeah, the productivity, but I have like even during COVID, except for 2 months, the school that I run is still open. So I had work to do. I don't think there's been an up or down towards fire in my writing. But I just wanted to comment on Damyanti's thing about Mumbai. That yeah, it is actually the imagery that you bring. It could be the season, it could be the charm of Mumbai. A couple of things I wanted to mention about Mumbai, why I love the place is and little known fact, like it has one of the biggest collection of Art Deco buildings, which is number two in the world after Florida. It has the largest number of Catholic churches in a square mile more than Vatican. It's a city which is a lot. It's beautiful. It gives a lot to people, but it has been ignored by a lot of people by just showing a few railway stations, and therefore you can create a brilliant scene, like Damayanti said, in Mumbai with the sea and everything. And I think again it comes back to the imagery of what image do you want to for the reader to have in their minds as they read the book. They could read a brass tack straight, man goes in, man kills, man comes back, and job done. But it's the romance that you bring into a story, which is either taking the season. So, like Manjiri is based in Austria. Joe Nesbo's book would always be the dark plot because he lived in Norway, which is 9 months out of 12, more than nine, I would imagine, is dark and gloomy and winter. So that's it. I can go on.
Manjiri,
Yeah.
do you as a writer and as a short filmmaker do kind of the weather or the season inspire you more sometimes, or is there a time of the year when you feel that you're not able to create as well as you do in other times of the year?
Yeah,
Do the
sure.
seasons affect your writing?
Yes, yes, they do. The seasons, the weather, everything affects me. I write best in rainy seasons. I just love the rain outside and me writing inside. I hate summers. No matter where I am, I would just run away. Summers are not for me. And winters, I like to travel. But so winters are for research, rains are for writing, and summers are to hide somewhere in a cool place, for sure.
That's very disciplined. I mean, I wish I could be that disciplined. But then, in my case, if I wrote only in rains, I would keep writing.
Yes, yes.
So I guess that is the difference.
You don't even know how lucky you are then.
Oh,
I,
the grass is always greener on the other side.
I
But I
feel
just want to comment, Kanchana, I just want to comment on one thing. We're talking about winter as, any season. I think there are two reasons why we take seasons. Okay, one is, of course, for the atmospheric creation. And second is, of course, for taking the story forward. Like Vish says that with the rains, they wash off the footprints. Or if you take Murder on Orient Express, if the train had not been snowed in, the entire story would not have happened. So there's a reason why Murder on Orient Express takes place in winter. So I think we need to consider both these elements, that it's not just the atmosphere, but it's also taking the story forward as a part of the plot.
Now, here's here's a thought about Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
I can imagine exactly the same scenario in an African desert where a train gets stopped by a sandstorm. So it's just that the imagery would be totally different.
totally different.
The rain.
Yeah, but the way we have appreciated Murder on Orient Express, it would lose its soul. I can write 10 stories like that with the same scenario in places with a different season.
That's
so
all right. I'm saying
when you're talking about Murder on Orient Express, the way it's been written and picturized and everything, there's a beauty to it all, and it's there because of the season, of course.
Yeah, but
because of the snow.
I'm not saying you can write or not write 10 more stories like that. All I was trying to point out that Agatha Christie could have imagined, because she did Murder in Mesopotamia and stuff.
Yes, she has.
And had we read that from 19 whenever, I started reading late because I'm so young. If we had read the first time it was Murder in the Sahara, that would have stuck in my mind.
Sure.
It's the
Absolutely.
He kind of put into our mind. It's what I was trying to say. I'm not disputing. I'm saying it's the imagery.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. It's only that we've now seen it in one form, and we're appreciating
Yeah.
that form.
Change that.
That's it.
You can't change
Yeah.
that forever. You put it in any other.
Damyanti, what is your take on this? Do you
Well,
feel Murder in the Orient Express would be just as beautiful as Murder in the Sahara Express, or Sandstorm?
You can't do
it
it now.
completely depends because,
You
as
can't do it
Manjiri
now.
very rightly pointed out, that there are two reasons. One is, of course, the atmosphere, and second is the
Hmm.
plot. Because
Hmm.
as crime authors, we have to, on each page and in each paragraph, in each sentence, we have to ensure that the plot is moving forward. So you can have plot is, desire thwarted. So when the
Hmm.
character has a desire, it is being thwarted. Now, it can be thwarted because of internal reasons, but also external reasons. So, when the desire is being thwarted due to external reasons, because on the Orient Express, what is the desire? Everybody wants to like bloody move on, let's just go home. But that
Hmm.
is being thwarted by snow. So, yes, if Sahara were there and if they could, in some ways people are dying of thirst and whatever it is, but it's a beauty, but it's a beauty of a different sort.
Different kind, yeah.
Yes, that is the reason why Nordic crime is much
Hmm.
more, popular than any other crime, because there's a sense of cabin fever, you see, where you cannot escape. You are trapped.
Hmm.
So that feeling is a lot more. I mean, when you have winter and it snowed all around, your feeling of frustration at being trapped, and that's bringing back deja vu of 2020. But that cabin fever, I feel sometimes is stronger during winter than in summer. That said, of course, an author who is able to take both atmosphere and plot,
Hmm.
they can, like as you pointed out, Jane Harper has done. She has created that atmosphere, but it's not closing in, it's trying to escape, is going out.
Yeah.
It's kind of the opposite of cabin fever.
Hmm. So would you like to talk about Vish? Would you like to talk about a few of your I follow you on Instagram, as I do with Damyanti and Manjiri also, and you are okay. So we have a question here. Let's first address the question. A crime scene set in winter can be quite romantic. Agree that it depends a lot on the author. Oh, this is not a question. This is just a comment. Okay, different authors and have this thing. Okay, thank you very much, Deepak. So Vish, back to you now. So would you tell us something? Name a few books that you have read recently or in the past, which have struck with you, and in which the seasons have been depicted. Specifically, winter season has been depicted very very well.
Actually, none. I've
None.
been no, I've been experimenting with all these psychological thrillers. The one I finished last night doesn't even mention the. I mean, it might have been, but it was so in the background. It didn't. I picked up Gillian McAllister's The Evidence Against You. It's quite plot driven, which does not mean it is like point A to point B in 300 pages. It
Hmm.
it brought other things into forefront, like your mental or how a psychological trauma or psychological incident can affect you. But I fail to remember anyone that I've read in the last 6 months or so where a
Okay.
season or a winter has been so prominent and
Hmm.
the time or whatever the story is kind of propelled by the winter or summer.
Okay. Manjari, what about you? Would you like to talk about any of your favorite books or movies that you've seen in the recent past or in the faraway past, in which winter has been very beautifully shown or portrayed, or any other season?
No, absolutely. I think mostly films, and lots of films show winter in a very, very nice way. For example, you have the Polar Express. Is it the Polar Express? Yeah, the Polar
Yes, yes,
Express.
Polar Express.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I love that film and the entire Christmassy,
Hmm.
snowy atmosphere. Then, like I said, Dr. Zhivago. Then there's a film called The Holiday, I think, which has winter and it's like two contrasting,
Yes, Holiday is a beautiful
Christmas.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good movie. Then, of course, we talked about Murder on Orient Express. Yeah, the Chronicles of Narnia, the
Yeah,
one with the Witch Wardrobe or something like that. That's the
that's
title.
right. That's right.
Yeah, so they've got there are so many, and I just love them. There's something about reading winter novels and watching winter films which gives me a feeling of warmth. as well as there's a
As
yearning
well
and a
as chill.
nostalgia. Yeah, and as well as a yearning and nostalgia about something unexplainable. I think there's a very, like I
Mm.
said, a romantic element to it, and not necessarily romance, but something that added element that will really, kind of attract you to it. I think
Mm.
so.
I think Rowling in one of the Harry Potter books,
Yes, yeah, Harry
like
Potter.
Harry stays back at the Hogsworth, and it's the winter, and he's all alone,
Yes,
and it kind of
yes.
shows his loneliness,
Yeah, and he
and
goes
his
to Hogsmeade. He goes to Hogsmeade, and the footsteps in the snow keep
yes,
vanishing.
yes,
Yeah,
beautiful,
that's right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Damayanti, over to you now. Just tell us some of your favorite books in which has struck in your mind.
One of the books, I think that was the first one I read by Joe Nesbo, is The Snowman. And there the snowman appears. So it after a while they figure out that it's a serial murder, and at each murder there's a snowman who appears. So the witnesses say that there was a snowman, or a snowman is present when they go to the crime scene,
Okay.
and the novel is called The Snowman, and it's very dark and creepy despite all the descriptions of snow, which is all white, and despite being very beautiful, it's kind of very menacing. Also, the one I mentioned before, The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, where in a house, it's in two timelines, so it's kind of a historical, paranormal, kind of a thriller mystery thing. And what she's very beautifully done is in two timelines, in both timelines, somebody disappears from that same house. And all of that is set in winter, so the house is all surrounded by snow and winter. So these two novels really
Really stand
struck
out.
me. Yes, as and
Great.
of course, as somebody who's lived in India and has only seen snow when I've traveled, say, to Japan or to London, and now I stay in Singapore. So there's no punctuation to time if there is no seasons. So, for example, you put away the winter clothes and you kind of take out the summer clothes. In Singapore,
Yeah.
I don't have that. So for me, I do crave winter sometimes, and I do read books set in winter because the feeling of escape is much stronger, right? Like, because outside it's always tropical, because this is like the heart of tropical, in terms of
Absolutely.
geography, right on the tropics.
Is it
And
like
I've
most
stayed
Yeah.
for almost 10 years now, so I do miss, Delhi ki sardi or wherever else ki sardi. And that my husband has often said, I'm taking a trip to Japan. Do you want to come, because there's going to be snow? So yeah, I mean, it's very individual. That's another reason why I'm like, I want to read a novel set in winter just to feel I have escaped something else. So
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Uh, does the winter attire of overcoats and scarves create a more broody and an evil character? Manjari, why don't you take this? This is from Siddhant Agarwal.
Yes, yes, of course it does, but it also helps in hiding the face of the criminal. You can hide behind those clothes. So certainly, it adds to the character of the villain, of course. And of course, there's also the warmth to it of being huddled in clothes. So it depends on how you look at it. But if he's a criminal, his attire would certainly help.
Plus, he has a
Great.
way to hide the gun in a coat. If you're not wearing a coat,
He
it's
can
difficult.
hide a gun, yes, whatever his coats. So it's a good attire for a criminal, yes.
And winter does give
Yeah.
you the opportunity of better clothing. That goes without an issue, because the clothing differs, especially if you have separate weathers, unlike Bombay and Singapore. If you have to use your total clothing, your wardrobe is always. I personally believe your wardrobe is better in winter because you've got so much more to carry on you with the
True.
scarf. I
Yes.
anyway summer scarf as
It's
well.
possible to camouflage better in winter clothing. I mean, you can change your scarf or you change your cap, so
Exactly.
you're escaping. So when you see in those movies where they are the villain is escaping and they just get rid of one cap and put on another cap and put on a different
Exactly.
cap, and
Even
then
True.
nobody recognizes them. So
it's the
Or
question.
just wear the coat inside out,
Coral,
and that's
Coral,
color.
I could not see Richa Mukherjee's question. Can you post it again? Yeah. Thrillers feed on context and atmospheric details. Which book or story of yours is absolutely devoid of these elements? And and would stand on its own legs irrespective of the season? Vish has answered this question, but Vish, would you like to take it up again? Thank you,
Yeah,
Richa.
a lot of my books would not. I mean, there would be seasonal elements of, yeah, the flowers are blooming or spring or something, but Bhendi Bazaar can stand and will stand on its legs without season, because understand that it's a story that spans 25 years. You cannot have a season particular. So would Dusra, so would Lipstick, so would the fourth one in the series, Showtime. And I'm expecting that the producers will
Hmm.
bring out Bhet Bazaar without the seasonal elements, showing Mumbai as I have shown in Beti Bazaar. A lot of legal thrillers, so it can happen that the murder happened in winters, but a legal thriller is largely based around the drama in the courtroom. So the arguments, it's that arguments and the court processes that are the protagonist, the second protagonist besides the whoever is the characters. So most of my books would stand without season. But now that everyone's insisted, I will try and find one dark winter to kill someone else.
Absolutely. So there are more questions coming. Okay. Okay, we've had this question. Okay, as writers, do you first think of the crime or the setting, including weather, when conceptualizing it? Damyanti, would you like to take this up? Do you
Uh,
think of the crime or the setting, including weather, while conceptualizing the story?
Don't lie.
Thank you.
Sadly, because I'm a literary writer, that's where my journey began. I was not a genre writer. And I started off as a literary writer. So it always starts from character. So it always starts from who the character is. And of course, where they are has a huge impact. So not just in expressing the character, but also in molding the character. So a character who's grown up all his life in Delhi, for example, would be slightly different from one in Mumbai. It will be very different to somebody who's grown up in Japan. Will be very different to somebody who's grown up in New York. So of
Hmm.
course, a character is also affected by setting, and from there I move on to the crime. Taking Vish's point, saying, motive, opportunity. So, what is the motive? Why is he committing the crime, right? So, from there, I move on character, then motive, then crime. And of course, part of that is setting. So, setting is, kind of side by side. I do not think of setting first, no.
What about you, Manjari?
Well, yes, I don't work as systematically as Damayanti. I go a lot with my gut feeling. I see my characters in my dreams first. For example, I saw Ray Parker as a man standing by the Schlossberg, the lake, with the slight mist and with a ponytail and with his camera slung across his shoulders. And I saw him first, and after that, I developed him. So basically, I don't follow a systematic process. I wait for the characters to come to me, but the characters come first. Then the plot unravels itself. I know what the setting is going to be first. Then that's where, because the setting is a part of my plot, it's not
Hmm.
separate from the plot. The seasons are a part of the plot. They're not separate from the plot. So all of this comes together as a holistic storyline for me.
What
So
That's
if
about
not.
you?
I want to answer Richa's question, could any of my novels stand
Hmm.
without independently?
Huh.
They would not. None of them would. Exactly opposite
Okay.
to what Vish said. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So Vish, what about you? Like, do you think about the character first, the crime first, the setting when you're starting a story, or when you think of the story, what comes to you the first?
So it depends on what I'm writing, because I know I write crime fiction, but there's a huge subgenres of crime fiction that I experiment with. So if it's a Rita Ferreira, it's straight. The character is there, which is, believe you me, after the fourth book, I'm finding it absolutely impossible to carry it forward. And I'm not kidding. I hats off to people like Lee Child and Michael Connolly and Agatha Christie, who can run one character throughout for 15, 17 books. I'm finding it very difficult to play the same kind of. It's getting monotonous, repetitive, if you will. If it's a legal thriller, then the legal plot is first. I have a bunch of characters which have now started becoming and developing into a series, and it's got picked up by a film producer. But otherwise, it is primarily what is the crime, what am I trying to do, and then have a character that can carry off that crime. For example, I've started writing Diary of a Con Man. Now, the con man has to be thought about first as to what he or she is. Why does he or she wants to get into conning? What is the problem, or what the character is? How does the character feel, look, everything before he or she can do the crime, or why are they interested in? So characterization is extremely important. So is the plot, and everything else is a way of putting. It's like you might have the best gift for me, and I'm expecting one. But it's also the packaging that makes a lot of difference on how the gift is presented. Sometimes some of the best things can just go and it doesn't present itself so well. So the entire environment, the entire scenery, the entire imagery, the entire seasonal stuff, in my mind, is the packaging that how you bring a good character and plot presented to the reader. Is I
Great. So Koral, I think we have one more question, right?
Sharon Stone.
This is someone called Sharon Shrey. Where do you get your ideas or inspiration for writing? But You Beneath Your Skin is known, but what about your other writing? So Damyanti, you take this up and then we'll take it forward.
Thank you, Sharon. I don't know where I get inspiration. I think inspiration is all around. I think there are so many stories that I'm not sure how to write them all, because everywhere you look in a newspaper, when you are reading books, when you are walking around, when certain events happen. So for example, the other day I was reading a piece of news. There was this guy who's a burglar, and he has burgled the place, and he left his phone behind with his own picture as the screensaver. So what kind of a guy does that, for example? Or I've read in the news, for example, in Kolkata, when you have pickpockets, they try and they slash themselves so that they don't get beaten by the public. So if they are getting caught, if people are on to them, they know that they would be beaten up. So what they do is they slash themselves so that they start bleeding so badly that people kind of go away, and then they have an assistant who takes. So now, anything could happen. And from there, you go to what if. So this brings the characters. Or what if the protagonist of my novel is this pickpocket, or is this pickpocket's assistant? And from then, I go cat with a yarn, trying to find what the story is. And I'm not as systematic as Manjiri says. I struggle a lot. But that really is my process. I have to find these little snippets of life or fiction or news, and from there something strikes, and I start with the question, what if, and go from there.
What about you, Manjiri? From where do you get your ideas, your inspiration, your plots from?
Well, yeah, so it's a question I've never been able to answer, Kanchana, because people derive their inspiration from reality. No, it's people derive their inspiration from reality, from news, from people around them, and I don't take inspiration from any one of them. I just trust my imagination.
Okay.
Probably my imagination takes inspiration from self-consciously from everything around me. But as a conscious effort, I avoid reality like the plague. And I try to create my own characters. I try to create my own plots, which is why they're a little larger than life and nothing mostly, connected with reality at all in that sense. And like I said, I add lots of romanticism. It's like they're like a dream life, a life larger than life, and a plot larger than life, and everything is really non-real in that sense. But sometimes, of course, there's some element of relativity to it. I mean, people can relate to them. They're not fantasy and they're not fairy tales. But imagination is my point of reference.
I get now. I have to say this. I was inspired by a big author I once met who told me that it's never the writer who writes the story. It's the story that finds the author as an instrument.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea who said this to you, and you're going to keep quiet, and I'm going to ask you the next question. he will not let go of this till I die and I'm born again, and even then he will keep on talking about this.
If you said it, it's the right thing. The idea always finds you. I agree with that.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Totally agree, which means it's a genuine feeling, which sadly being, I don't know about Damyanti, has never happened to me. I have to work hard and struggle and find words to fit in and find a story. I do depend on real incidents and legal thrillers of something that's happened somewhere and then make a story around it. So I never woken up in the morning and said, stories come now. But sadly, maybe one day. Maybe I'll be enlightened one day, but not today.
So please tell us about how you conceived of this Rita Pereira character. She's very interesting.
Rita Pereira actually, so if I don't know how many of you read Bhendi Bazaar, but let me give you a bit of a background. Then in Bhendi Bazaar, there was every bit of a chance that the villain could take the book away from the protagonist. The villain was supposedly so powerful and there would be so much empathy and everything for the villain that he or she could have carried away the story. You needed a balancing character who could. So the story is from the perspective of Rita Ferreira and not from the perspective of the villain. And spanning 25 years. So in trying to build that character, and people ask me why woman, why, it was never, I didn't start with the gender of the policewoman. It just so happened that I wanted someone who had enough gravitas to kind of carry the story and at the same time be realistic enough for people to, otherwise there would have been a huge disconnect that people kind of empathized only with the villain and thought, I didn't want to create a superwoman or a superman with, pants on the trousers and she could fly. So I created a beautiful but flawed character in the sense she makes mistakes, she ends up in dead ends, then she turns around, she drinks, she has a messy boyfriend comes and leaves her or whatever happens. She's got a real life story that people align to. And people understand that, and that's how Rita Ferreira got created. And when I finished writing Bendi Bazaar, and it took me a long time to write, I wasn't well then, and I thought that maybe she might be accepted, might not be, but in the first version of Bendi Bazaar, I did in the end, in the author's note, said, if you like Rita Ferreira, let me know before I start penning the other one. And I had enough emails to believe that Rita Ferreira could carry forward. She's carried forward for 3. The fourth one is with my agent. I will one day write 5, but I guess I need to kind of find a little bit of twist before it gets too repetitive. It gets very difficult if you have the same set of characters.
Koral, can we have the next question?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your advice to those who want to become an author or write a book? From where do they start? So, Damyanti, since this is addressed to you, you start and then we'll take it to the others.
Why don't we do the other way around this time? Start with Manjiri, go to Vish.
Okay, let's start with Manjiri.
Start with Vish.
So I think become an author or write a book is the same thing in my mind. I don't know why they are two things. I guess I always believe, I'll always say, every single one of us has at least one story that we all can write. Now, it's only a question of patience. It's only a question of putting it on the paper, typing it months on end without this thing whether it can get published or not. Because be true to yourself, and this gentleman, the question is, have you started writing it? Have you written it? Because most of us think we can, but we never get up, and it's not difficult. It is very laborious, if you will, to sit down painfully and keep hitting those keys, those 26 keys, and coming up with a coherent story. And anyone can do it, but do you have the patience to do it? And once you have it, is it true to what you wanted to write? Because I've met people at the festivals who just want to make, he says, I want to make millions out of it. I said, you are in the wrong profession. You want to write or you want to make money. Both can combine at some point. I'm not saying they won't. But what is the...
But if you set out with that aim, then that's...
Anybody can write a story. I don't think it's very difficult. It's just that... Yeah, Manjiri.
Yeah, so, I agree with Vish to an extent, for the first time, Vish, but still I agree with you. So I think if you want to write, if you want to be a writer, first there has to be an idea which is actually burning a hole inside you. If it's burning a hole, and if that idea doesn't come whole, and it's burning a bigger hole inside you, that's the only time you can write. If you want to write to earn millions, like Vish said, don't come into this field. When you come into this field, come with an open mind, open eyes, and lots of indifference smeared on your heart. Come with a thick skin, come with a thick heart, come ready to be rejected and rebuffed and criticized, because that's what this field is all about. And if you continue to write despite all of that, and if you continue to believe in yourself, that you have something in you and you have an idea which is burning a hole inside you, then become a writer, then try to write.
Damyanti?
You guys have left me with nothing to say. I mean, I agree with everything you guys have said. And to me, I feel that one of the things that to be an author, to finish a book really, is to try and finish, because somebody who is writing for the first time, the most important thing is to finish. Because you write these drafts, and then at 10,000 words, at 20,000 words, at 30,000 words, and then it's very difficult to carry forward and take it to that whatever. One of the things is, of course, as Manjiri said, if it's burning a hole in you, so obviously that's a good thing. That's something that will take you someplace. But even if you do not have something like that, but the fact that you want to write is something that's burning a hole in you, sometimes you do not get big ideas. There are authors of various stripes. Sometimes you get an idea which cannot carry a novel. It could carry a short story, but it does not, it is not able to take the weight of an entire narrative. It will not go that far. But the whole idea is to try and finish, try and see if you can sit and write those 80,000 words. As Vish pointed out, keep that typing going. So in the beginning, no judgment, no, evaluation, no figuring out how you're going to sell it, but finish it. Because I think I've met so many aspiring authors over the last 10 years, and some of whom are still trying to write their first book. They say, we are going to write it, but they've written like till their third chapter, and that's it. So my point is, finish the whole thing. Once you've finished it, then you know what you're going to do, whether you're going to be a writer, whether this is for you, whether this is not for you, but finish one manuscript. And that's the only poor advice I can give you. I agree with everything Vish and Manjiri have said.
That's what happened in my case. I kept telling my wife, I want to write a book. And one day she said, why don't you go and write it? And I wrote 5-6 chapters, showed it to her. And her first reaction was, where have you copied it from? And that was motivating for me. I thought it must be good enough for her to think that I copied it. If she thinks that I've copied it, means at least she thinks that it's worth to carry forward. And I carried on. It took me 2.5 years first time to find a publisher. But finish the book first. Find the publisher second. That's a second problem you have. A good problem to have once you've written the book.
Can I add to what Damyanti said?
I just want to add something to this, that, as a new author, I still consider myself a new author because I have only 2 books to my name, as against so many others that Vish and Manjiri have written. If you want to take your writing seriously, and if you are serious about wanting to finish what you have, the idea that's either burning a hole in your head or keeping you awake, form a small writing group. Join a small writing group. Don't go and join a huge writing group, because writing is a very solitary activity, which is which can get very intimidating if you try to keep doing it alone. But if you're part of a smallish group where everyone is kind of in the same boat, or some of them a little more experienced, it gives you a kind of a comradeship. You're in it together. And I have experienced this myself. I was part of Write It Beyond, and that helped me immensely. So that's just my 2 little bits about this.
I've never thought of it, but it's a good idea.
I just wanted to add something to what Damyanti said about finishing. I think it's a fantastic point, because when you start out to write, you have to realize that writing is actually only 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It's not the other way around. It's this way. And you have to keep at it word by word and day by day. And all this will happen no matter where you are and how you write, if you believe in yourself. So I think believe in yourself and finish the draft, the first draft, for sure.
True.
True.
Coral, can we have the last question? When setting a plot in a particular season, how much do you think elements such as food and drinks impact the psyche of a reader in comprehending it?
I don't know about the reader. I think the writer की psyche में a drink should be.
Wish, do you want to take this up?
No, I think it's again like a season. It is primarily on the author of what you want to bring to the forefront. So Rita Ferreira, for example, only drinks Jim Beam. If you serve her anything, she will not drink. There's a whole backstory of why she will never drink scotch. So you just created a persona that does what it does. It's not about. I mean, you can. So there is a scene where somebody in one of my books, Baby Bazaar, where he picks up those samosas in the news. They used to wrap it in newspapers at the time. And as he finishes the samosas, the newspaper print tells him what he needs to do next because the old news is published. So because I wanted to bring that scene in front as to how he gets that tip of going where next, the old newspaper cutting in which the samosa is packed brings it very beautifully into play, which a lot of people have experienced in their life. Otherwise, you could show a restaurant scene after restaurant. Again, like Damyanti said, the plot has to keep moving. The plot needs to keep moving. You can't have food and drink scene without the plot. Otherwise, the reader would lose interest after a while.
True. Manjiri, would you like to comment on this?
I think food, if there's a scene where they're eating and that scene is important to the story, then the food adds to that element. I mean, like, for example, in the trailer for, I had to, get to know all the Austrian recipes, because whenever they went somewhere and they were eating, then the food added to the authenticity of the book. So I had to mention that. So in that sense, yes, the food is important. It adds that the element of the taste, the sixth sense, not sixth sense, the sense of taste in a reader when he's reading something. So everything together. So it's not just the food or what you're drinking or whatever. Everything that you write in the book, every word has to mean something. If you remove that word, your book should fall apart. I mean, I'm exaggerating here, but that's how important every element in your novel has to be, no matter what it is.
Very true. And taking off from there, I think added to your point, Manjari, about the authenticity, which is very important, because when you get into the details, like Vish was mentioning, the paper and the samosa. So what happens is that specific detail kind of convinces the reader that what this author is saying, they know what they're talking about. So if he got the samosa and the paper right, whatever else he's saying is also right. That's number one. And number two is, I think, universality, because I think all of us are aware of food. All of us are, we connect with food, and food is one way in which, no matter in which part of the world you're in and what sort of cuisine you're talking about, you can create emotion, you can create family, you can create feelings that somebody can identify with. So for example, in my book, I had a boy with autism, and he only eats Mughlai chicken. When for chicken, he likes Mughlai chicken. For cake, he will only have Black Forest cake. And some of the readers in the US and the UK, when they read it, they commented. They were like, we are very. We were very touched by this thing that, Mughlai chicken and how it is made, and this do pyaza, and then there was paratha, and then there was Nizam roll. So they like, we felt like we could taste it, and that is how it kind of took us to India, but at the same time, it kind of made it very universal, in the sense that, we are talking about a family. You Beneath Your Skin, at the end of the day, is a family story. It's a mother and a son story at some level. And food kind of made it, in such a way that anybody in any culture can kind of identify with what's being said, even though they've never been to India. So I think food can be definitely a very, very important thing, apart from the fact that we writers are also, Vish mentioned putting on weight. You can eat when you're trapped, when you're writing. You put on a lot of weight. I can testify to that. I put on like, unmentionable number of kilos in the months of writing. So yes, when you're eating also, I'm eating parathas, so parathas kind of get into the book. So that happens. And I think we have Kanchana back. Kanchana, are you back?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry, my laptop, I don't know, just conked off.
So
So
welcome
anyway,
back.
since Damyanti, since you mentioned about this, I can also vouch for this. When I wrote the Cosmic Clues and Astral Lullaby, they're novels based in Pune, and they're about a Pune detective who solves cases with the help of horoscopes. But they were published in the US by Random House USA, and they had the entire. You had pav bhaji, you had misal pav, all the Maharashtrian food was mentioned time and time again in the books. And the Americans there wrote back to me saying, "Please tell us what this dish is. It sounds so enticing and tempting, we want to try it." So it does create curiosity, and it does bring I think the readers together. I completely agree with you.
Actually that invokes other
it,
senses
yes,
would,
yes,
would
it does.
not. So
Yeah.
I take the point totally on board. Kanchana ji,
No, no,
okay,
yes.
this is for our host, Kanchana.
Okay. Okay, so this time to reach the end of our time limit.
Your
And
voice,
Anjana, your
Voice
audio
is
is not
not,
can you
it's
hear me?
muffled. Yeah, yeah, now we can.
now.
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
now. Yes.
Okay. So, sorry about the little glitch. My laptop is conked off at the very end. Can you hear me
No,
now?
we can hear you, but the audio is very
Now,
echoing
Yeah,
and yeah.
it's all
now
right,
we
you can
don't
speak.
hear very well.
Kanchana, you can speak.
Okay. So I know
Okay.
I'm just wrapping up. I'm just wrapping up the session. Sorry for the last minute glitch that happened. Thank you everyone for joining the session, for your inputs, for everything that we discussed. It was wonderful seeing all of you. In this time when we can't travel and be there together at this space, etc. At least we have these sessions. So thank you, Coral. Thank you, Tell Me Your Story, for organizing this winter retreat and for getting all of us together to share our thoughts and ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
Thanks.
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you, Manjiri, Vish. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
It's been lovely.
Thanks.
And thank you to the readers who showed up, Siddhant, Sid, Anu,
Yeah.
all of these book reviewers. So thank you so much for showing up, you all. They all are, readers of crime. So it's lovely to see them. And
Thank you
thank you,
very much.
Cora. Thank you, TMIS. And I'm
Bye.
so glad now I can finally say I've met Manjiri and I've met Vish.
See you. Look forward.
Kanchana, of course, I know very well.
Of course.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.